All right, Angela, thanks so much for doing this and being on this podcast. I appreciate it. First off, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Northwest Education Access.
Awesome. Cool. Nice to be here. So my name is Angela Pierce-Ngo. I use she, her pronouns. And right now I'm one of our program directors of collective impact at Northwest Education Access. And I've actually been with the organization since 2012. So a long time now. So I started working here right after college. I was a tutor supporting students who were getting their GED or who were, yeah, just needing some extra support with education. But I fell in love with the mission because it really resonated with me. Our mission here, so back then we were Seattle Education Access, and now we're Northwest Education Access. But the mission was really to support students outside of the traditional K-12 system. So students who were either pushed out of their traditional high schools or life happened. They had a lot of barriers and stuff going on, and they wanted to go back to school. And so I really liked that because I always thought everyone deserves that support to go to school, and a lot of my peers were in similar situations. And so, yeah, I wanted to stay here, and I kind of had different positions along the time. I was an education advocate for a while, supporting students one-on-one, and now I just help with a lot of the program planning. And
Because what I was going to ask is, what do you do at Northwest Education Access?
yeah. So we work with students who are 16 to 29, so really big age range. And we work with students who are usually outside the traditional high school system. So students who are maybe at open doors or re-engagement programs, or they're at community partners like shelters or case management programs, housing programs, things like that. And we have education advocates. So I used to have that position. And they work one-on-one with students. So it's a very like relationship-based supportive mentorship program where we're supporting students think of their education plan, what worked for them in education, what do they want to get, where do they want to go, and we support them long term until they reach whatever their goals are. So maybe that's getting a GED or getting a high school diploma, or they want to go get a certificate or go to college or go to an apprenticeship. So we really support them in wherever they want to go. And we work with them for as long as they need to.
hmm So when you say like an education plan, what are the steps that are involved? Is it like meeting with the student one-on-one, creating a plan that outlines, hey, this is how you want your education future to look like? How does that sort of work?
Yeah. So the first step is we're really relationship based. So usually when I had student meetings, it was really just getting to know each other first. Getting to know like what are you interested in? Why are you here? Do you have a support system? Do you not? What barriers maybe kept you from accessing education in the past? Things like that. And so usually the first meeting or two is really just getting to know one another. And what's really cool about our program is we're really flexible. So I can meet with someone Zoom just like this, or we can go to like a coffee shop, or I've like met students on break at the mall, like in between their shifts, and we'll go to like the food court or something like that. So really low barrier. And also like if a student has a child, like they can bring them with them. That's totally fine. Like we can just meet and chat. So that's usually the first couple meetings, and then we'll start to develop some goals and a plan. So maybe they want to start school in the spring. We can start to work kind of backwards from that. And like, do we need to do financial aid? So we can help with like financial aid applications. Do we need to think about, I don't know, housing? Like, do you need to make sure housing's good, childcare? Think of all those different things in between that need to, get set before they can start school. And then once they start school, making sure they get their books, making sure they get transportation taken care of, and then while they're in school, just continue to check in and get them connected to tutoring or the disabilities office or I don't know, like other case management or mental health support. So really kind of continue to support them throughout that.
hmm Because what I was going to ask is, um, what are some of the problems or barriers that you identify in the K through 12 system, and how does Northwest Education Access step in and address those issues?
Yeah, that's really great question. So a lot of the students who come to us, so majority of our students, they're all low income students, students of color, but we have a significant portion about, we did a survey with our students a year or two ago, and about a quarter of them self-reported that they had a disability. And then some of our students have also reported to us, even just in one-on-ones, a learning difference, or they're dealing with barriers such as finding stable housing, or dealing with mental health challenges. And we did a report back in 2019, right before 2020, where we interviewed a bunch of students asking them, like, why did they leave in the first place? And the biggest findings we came from that report, it's on our website if folks want to find it, but we found that a lot of the barriers had to do with mental health support, like having inadequate mental health support while they were in high school, access to basic needs barriers. So a lot of our students were going through housing insecurity, food insecurity, things like that. Not having the right academic support at their institutions. And then there was a theme around like racial bias and just climate in school, just not feeling safe or supported.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And like and pointing and going back to my next question, how does education access sort of um address those needs? Because you
Yeah.
identified the barriers, but what can Northwest Education Access do to sort of help the person say, hey, we're here to support you, we're here to guide you through your education journey?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all, I feel like that's always the big question, right? Like we continue to serve students one-on-one. We serve almost like 1,000 students a year, and we want to meet the needs of the students here and now, but we also know that there's so many systemic barriers that, are causing this problem in the first place. And so some of the things we're doing is, we did that report. We shared it out with the community. We shared it with school districts. And we're advocating for students. Like these are clearly why students are leaving and disengaging from school. And there's an opportunity here to shift and change those. We do annually, we do like an advocacy day where we bring students to the Capitol, so that they can advocate and bring up these are significant reasons why students are leaving or they're having trouble accessing education. So we're always looking at ways that we could do policy advocacy work. And then this past year, we became a backbone organization for a regional network. So it's called the Sound Reengagement Collaborative. And so every month, we actually have our first meeting coming up soon. We're bringing together providers from Pierce County and King County who serve this population to hopefully to bring us together to do this. Like we all know there's issues here. We all know that there's a lot of systemic barriers preventing our students from succeeding. So what can we do together? So we're thinking we're going to have our first bigger advocacy day this year. So bringing together all these different providers, what are system change that we can do in the meantime in our own program. So we're sharing out best practices and learnings. Like this has really worked over here in this program, and they're finding really great success. How can you adapt that or learn from each other? So small ways there. It's difficult because we want to meet the needs of our students right now, and sometimes that takes a lot of energy, but we also want to make sure we're advocating at the same time and making sure people know what 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 can we do, and that this population exists in the first place.
Hmm. And who's usually, at the table, making, decisions as to what students need? Is it, educators, former educators, parents of students, who is at the table, so to speak?
Yeah. So in the work we do, our day-to-day one-on-one work is very student-led. So our education advocates and our students, the student is in the driver's seat, we always say. They are making the decisions. We're just there to support them and make sure they have all their options. So I would say in our day-to-day work, we always make sure the student is there. They're at the table, they're leading our work. As an organization, we actually have an alumni student advisory board. So that is also supporting as an organization, us with some big organizational questions if we need feedback. When we were doing that student survey that I mentioned, we got feedback from them of like the questions we were asking, or in that research project we did. And then now at that collaborative, that big network, so the people making up that space, it's a lot of providers, so a lot of folks from GED re-engagement programs, so either teachers or case managers are there. And then we have some administrators there. We have community-based organizations and then the community technical colleges. So we have some deans or some like student support staff attending. And then this year we're launching, because we want to make sure students are there as well, we're launching a student arm of that. And so we're going to be having students attend our meetings, and also we're going to have a research fellowship so that they can also conduct their own research project of like what questions do they want answers on, or what do they want to bring to light for the adults in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What have you learned in doing this kind of work? Have you gotten the chance to like get the chance to hear from students who have been through the Northwest Education Access and to talk about their own experience?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's really important. So that's part of like our alumni and student advisory board. So we have some alumni there. We also try to keep in touch with our alumni. Like I personally have some students that went through our program. I worked with them for like 6, 7 years, and now they're in the field working themselves. And so we are trying to also engage our alumni through like asking them surveys, but also just inviting them back, interviewing them, asking them questions, or inviting them to other events. We're also starting to have some of our alumni interested in like mentoring other students, or volunteering with us, or we even have alumni who work for us as well. So we even hire our alumni as well. So it's really cool to have them, folks who had those personal experiences themselves, and then they're here at the table again, like that previous question you asked. They're here now working at our organization and supporting our growth and ideas for the future.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you guys will be doing at Northwest Education Access? Like, are there any events that you guys will be hosting or anything that's coming up that people should know about?
Yeah, so the Sound Re-engagement Collaborative, that big network that we have, is open to everyone to come join. And so those meetings are every month, and the first one is on September 19th. So that's our kickoff meeting. It's going to be at 10 a.m. at the Federal Way Community Center. And you can find the invitation on our website. You can add it to your calendar, or sign up to start attending those or get our newsletter. So those are monthly, and we'll be always having that. And then we will also be having an advocacy day in Olympia in January. We'll be inviting that network. So if folks are interested in joining the network and coming with us to advocate for students, they can definitely sign up and join us
Mm-hmm.
there.
And lastly, as a final question, how can Northwest Education Access be sort of that anchor or that launch point into a student's educational success? Because you earlier you talked about some of the barriers that folks may face, with like getting access and all that kind of stuff. But how does your organization in particular help students, achieve their highest educational potential, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. I think the reality with where we live here in the Pacific Northwest, and specifically like the Seattle Tacoma area, is it's really expensive to live here. Like the cost of living is going higher and higher and higher. And the reality of a lot of jobs is that you need some type of skill or certificate or something to get a lot of those jobs. That's what the data is telling us. And so I think by pursuing a post-secondary credential, like again, that could be a certificate, that could be just training of some kind, apprenticeship. It's really going to support young people like just get through the door so that they can have a livable wage. We hear that a lot, but just so that they can have yeah, more comfortable wage so that they can live here, they can provide for their families. And so I think by just chatting with an education advocate of ours, you can start thinking about what are my goals, what are my interests. We're very much so, we provide all the options. So like really, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? What gives you energy? And sometimes some students will have very specific interests, or sometimes they're like, I just know I want to make a good amount of money. What kind of jobs and we can kind of go with that and start working with that. And so it's just really getting your foot in the door. And what a lot of students don't realize is they can get all of this really paid for. There's a lot of financial aid and scholarships out there that we can support students in finding, so that they can just have that opportunity. So,
Mm-hmm. Because I remember not everybody has that path of like high school, college, and then careers. So
yeah,
yeah, because oftentimes like people they go to like high school, they graduate high school, or they go to community college, and then they do go to a university, or they often do trade school
yes,
because it's they financially cannot afford going to college. I fortunately was the beneficiary of college and got through it and had my most memorable experiences of my life, but other
yeah.
people just don't have that luxury, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one way we describe our program, right? And it kind of goes back to my original story of like, I felt like all people deserved that support because I was lucky enough to be a recipient of a scholarship program that was really competitive and I got a lot of support given to me, but a lot of my friends didn't. And I'm like, well, they they need that support too. They need someone to talk to. They need someone to help with their financial aid. They need someone to just even just give them ideas of what's out there because we don't you don't know what you don't know. So I think our program is really just to meet you where you're at. And whether you are 18 or whether you are 29, like I think there's no timeline on achieving your goals. And so I think that's why we also have such a big age range. And even if someone turns 30, we still work with them. So like we're not going to age somebody out of our program. There's a lot of time to yeah, accomplish your goals. And so we keep an open-ended timeline. And sometimes we have students, and I feel like yeah, the path is not linear. So sometimes students will start with us and then something happens in life, and they need to take a break. And we're like, that's okay. Take a break. We're here when you come back and like um we'll get it going. So actually when COVID happened, we were really set up for that. Um we kept our program going because a lot of our students had to take breaks for they had to work or mental health or just their health in general and we're like that's fine. Take a break and then when you're ready just hit us up again and then we'll just pick it up there. So,
Yeah. Alrighty.